Hey everyone, it's the last week of June here in New Jersey and everything's growing nicely, so let me take you around the garden and I'll show you how it looks. So here are the herbs, and you might notice that I trimmed back this rosemary plant a lot because I used this, I was going to use this in like a burger recipe, and I cut up the leaves and taste them and they were really bitter. So I ended up just composting them and cutting this back because from what I read, if there's a lot of old growth, that could be causing the bitterness. So I just left a few big stems here, and there's a lot of new shoots growing off of them. So I'm hoping that by the end of the year, it'll end up about the same size as it was, when I started this year over the winter. And the same thing with the thyme plant. I had some type of bugs that seemed to be getting into them, and so I trimmed that plant back a lot, and it's also growing new shoots. Now over on this side, these two plants are doing incredible, and that's the parsley and the lemon verbena. So I think I had 2 or 3 parsley transplants that I planted out, but I mean these are starting to really take over most of the side of the garden, and the same thing with the lemon verbena. And I still have yet to use this. I'm planning on getting some fish, and then once the squash comes in, which I'll show you in a little bit, I'm going to end up testing it out with that, and I might try and use it in like a tea or something if I do a sun tea. But the smell of this is really good. I mean, this really does have a strong lemon smell, so if you can get this plant, I definitely recommend trying it out. And on the end here is the basil. This is also three plants, which I think each one of the transplants had 2 or 3 basil plants from seed. So this is a lot more than I started with last year. Last year I think I only planted out 1 plant, which it ended up growing really big, but I'm gonna get a lot more basil this year. And you might notice on some of these leaves, like this one, there was a lot of bug damage, just white spots all over the leaves, and I think it was those bugs that were in the thyme plant. And thankfully it seems to have outgrown that, starting to green up and really look healthy. But I was worried for a while that the basil plants weren't going to turn out, and you can see some of them are going to seed, so I just had to start trimming the seeds back. But this plant is going to be huge, I'm sure, in about another month or so. And over here I have a chocolate mint plant in a pot, and you can see, since I have this in the corner, I've just been kind of like threading these shoots in the chicken wire. So this should actually look cool once this starts to grow out, because otherwise these leaves just flop over the side of the pot or just grow on top of themselves within the pot. But you might see also that this plant was also suffering from some of the bug damage with the white spots. Now here's my 4x4 greens bed, and I had to cut out most of the lettuce plants in this bed, but I still have the kale, the dinosaur kale back there, the curly leaf kale down here, and the chard plants. And both of these I think are going to go through the summer, at least they did last year. So I'm going to continue to use these and saute them up, throw them in salads. And over here I have the tomato plants, which they're also starting to take up these cages. So I think by the end of the year they'll probably end up getting close to the top, which is about 7 feet. This is the yellow pear tomato plant, so you can kind of see the pear shape of these. And I grew this 2 years ago, and I liked it a lot for salads. They were really sweet, and just a unique type of tomato that you don't really see in the stores. Yeah, these are doing really well. And what I think I mentioned this in the other video, I had lettuce plants growing in between the tomato plants. So you'll see, that's what I got here. This is arugula, and some of these are going to seed. And on the other side there I have lettuce. And I just picked some of this the other day, and I think this is doing well because, kind of like I planned it out, the tomato leaves are providing shade for these lettuce plants, so they're not getting full sun all day, which is nice. And here's the other side with lettuce, and this is the Roma tomato plant. So let me see if I can get in there and see one of these tomatoes. There's a bunch of them, and this is my first year growing this, and I'll probably end up using these for tomato sauces, and I'm gonna end up dehydrating some because I bought a dehydrator. In this corner, this is the beefsteak tomato, and some of these are starting to get pretty big. This is another one that I didn't grow beefsteak, but 2 years ago, actually last year too, I grew big beef, which is a similar type of tomato, but last year they didn't do as well, and I think it was because I didn't have enough shade on the plants. I was trimming too much, so that's kind of why I ended up doing this bigger cage, and I'm not really trimming at all besides like the outer parts of the cage to make sure that there's no branches that are just flopping over. And then this plant is another cherry tomato. I actually forget the exact variety. I'll have to look at the seed packet, but this produced a bunch of new shoots, and I got a cutting from one of this, and I'm planting that out. So I'm not sure exactly where that'll end up. I may end up giving it away, the tomato plant, but I mean, because I'm not trimming back, I can get way more cuttings from these plants if I wanted to. So that's another thing that I may test in the future. Probably not going to be too active with it this year. And here's another close-up of the greens bed. You can see the red Swiss chard. And here's the Dinosaur Kale. Yeah, I think these Dinosaur Kale leaves, they look pretty awesome. They seem to be a little tougher than the curly leaf kale, but that's just when I sauteed them. I still want to make some kale chips with them, which I'll probably do a big batch of them pretty soon. Over here I got my pepper plants planted out, and you know, they're not really big yet. They were all kind of not growing very much in the small pots that I had them in, so it took them about a week to take in the soil and really start greening up and looking healthy. And thankfully it rained last night, so I haven't needed to water too much in the last 2 weeks. I would say I probably only come out here maybe 4 or 5 days, whereas if it's like, you know, the peak of summer heat, I might be out here every day watering. Now this is the yellow squash plant, and I got a ton of squash growing on these. I'll get in here. And there you can see all the baby squash growing. If I pan over here, there's a lot more growing. So I mean, these, I already got about 5 pounds of squash so far, and from the look of it, I'm going to get about 5 to 10 pounds more in the next 2 or 3 days. Now I'm pretty happy about this. I got this metal mesh in the middle of my bed here, and the cucumbers are, like I wanted them to, growing right up it. So you can kind of see like the little shoots that they put out, and they just grab a hold of this and continue to grow upward. And so they've already reached the top of this, but I'm just happy that I'm going to be able to grow this vertically, because the cucumbers kind of took over my bed, and that's really what the squash is doing right now. But now that I know that I can grow these a little more vertically, I may be able to set it up a little bit better in the future, next year when I plant these out. Now on the other side of the bed here, I have a yellow squash and a green zucchini right next to that. So let me see if I got any little squash on here. Yeah, there you go. And there's a bigger one. And over here, this is the green zucchini plant. So you can see one right here. A couple of them right there. And here's another one. This is growing into the bed where I have green beans planted out. Here are the bean plants, and I have a mix of green, yellow, and purple. I think right now just the yellow ones have been producing. The other ones are still growing, but there should be a lot of beans on here. So you can see one right there. And if I kind of lift this over, I mean, you can see how they're growing in here. And I showed you this last month. This is the Cubanelle Pepper plant. So I still got these 2 guys on here, which I'm just gonna let this grow and ripen. I'm not gonna pick peppers too early. The only other pepper plant that has a fruit on it is the Poblano over here. Right there. So hopefully by next month the pepper plants will be doing better, and I'm gonna have to continue to trim these cucumber and squash plants, otherwise they would take over this bed. And you can see the rebar here. This is a good shot of the rebar that I just have stuck into the ground. It's like I think it's a 3-foot piece of rebar. Got it in there about a foot deep to hold up this steel grid. So in total, that, you know, this cost, I don't know, $15. Well worth it for sure. And I may end up trying to put 2 of these across one bed next year, like I said, when I do cucumbers. So this is where I had the broccoli and the cauliflower planted out, but I cut those. I got 1 head of broccoli off of each of the plants and no cauliflower. And it was just about time. I had these squash plants in small pots and they really weren't growing that much, so I wanted to get them planted out. And I have 1 each of the yellow squash, green zucchini, and then I have 1 more cucumber. And that's what these 3 plants are. So this should give me, if I need to end up cutting out the other plants to save some space, I should still get harvest out of these. So we'll see how these look next month. Here's a quick look at the cherry tomato plant that I planted out from the cutting. I just filled up this bigger, this pot, which is a little bit taller than the normal pots that you get, with soil, and thankfully it's been raining out here, so it's kept this completely soaked, and that's what you need to get it to root. Once it starts to root, I'll be able to plant this out, or like I said, maybe give it away. So there you go. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, because I'm gonna do these videos monthly with my garden to show you the progress. And I also have recipe videos coming out for the keto diet, low carb recipes. And if you're just watching this video for gardening, I lost about 30 pounds doing the keto diet. So if you want to get healthy, I mean, I think gardening and eating a better diet is the best way to go. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day.